Have you ever wondered how ordinary people, whom you've never met, with no followers, no cameras, and no fame, are managing to earn money online every day while most people still believe it's impossible? It might sound like an exaggeration, but the truth is there's a silent group of people building consistent online income without showing their faces, without relying on luck, and without needing to become influencers. And the most curious thing is, many of them started exactly like you, with no experience, no spare money, and no idea where to begin. Perhaps you've already tried some way to make money online and it didn't work. Maybe you've seen promises of extra income online that seemed too good to be true. Or worse, maybe you've even thought that this world just isn't for you. Have you ever been through this? The problem isn't a lack of opportunity. Today, it's never been easier to make money online. What's often missing is seeing the right path and understanding how ordinary people are transforming small actions into real results. And that's exactly what you're about to understand. There's a huge difference between those who merely consume content about personal finance and those who actually start building wealth. While many get stuck watching videos, waiting for the big idea, others are applying simple, repeatable strategies that work even without showing their face. They've understood something fundamental. It's not about getting rich quick, but about creating online income streams that grow over time. And here's a point that almost no one talks about. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need thousands of followers. And you certainly don't need to expose your life on the internet. What you need is to understand how to use the digital environment to your advantage. And when you start developing this kind of mindset, the so-called financial growth mindset, everything changes. Because making money online isn't just about money. It's about freedom. It's about not being solely dependent on a salary. It's about building something that can grow even while you sleep. Sounds far-fetched, I know, but stick with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. There are simple, accessible methods that are being used every day by completely ordinary people. People who decided to stop waiting and started acting, even without having everything perfect. And the most interesting thing is that these methods aren't secret. They're available, but go unnoticed by most. While many people continue to believe that only those who are visible can make money online, there is another path happening in parallels, strategic, and extremely powerful. A path that involves consistency, smart decisions, and a new way of looking at money and opportunities. And it is precisely here that everything truly begins to change. Because in the next few minutes, you will begin to see this scenario with different eyes. And perhaps, as you're listening to this now, a part of you is starting to wonder, could I do this too? Because at its core, it's not just about making money online, it's about proving to yourself that there's a different way out. A path that doesn't depend solely on what you've always been taught. And if this topic truly resonates with you, I want to extend a simple but very important invitation. Leave a comment below, sharing what has resonated with you the most so far. It could be a question, an experience you've had trying to make money online, or even what's preventing you from starting today. Sometimes, just putting it out there can help you see things differently. And more than that, you might end up helping other people who are going through the exact same situation. If you've ever thought about building an extra income online, or changing your financial reality, click the like button. It may seem like a small thing, but it shows the platform that this type of content about personal finance and wealth building needs to reach more people. Your participation here really makes a difference. Now, if you want to continue learning real ways to make money online, develop a financial growth mindset, and break free from the cycle of always starting and never seeing results, subscribe to the channel, because the idea here isn't to sell you illusions. It's to show you practical paths that you can apply at your own pace, in your own way. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content. And when more people start to understand how to use the internet to generate income, something much bigger begins to happen. Not only in their lives, but in the entire environment around them. And the most interesting thing is that everything you're seeing here isn't distant theory. It's something that can become part of your reality from the moment you decide to look at it more closely. Because now that you've started to see this other side, it becomes difficult to simply ignore what comes next. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because there's a truth that many people avoid facing. It's not that there's a lack of opportunity. It's that, most of the time, we've been conditioned to always make the same decisions that keep everything exactly as it is. And this has nothing to do with a lack of ability. It has to do with mindset. With the patterns you've built up throughout your journey. Perhaps you wake up every day already thinking about bills, work, the pressure of making money stretched, and at the end of the month, it seems like nothing really changes. It's a silent, almost automatic cycle. And the most curious thing is that, meanwhile, there are ordinary people making small changes behind the scenes, adjusting the way they see money, trying different approaches, and, little by little, creating a real transformation in their own lives. It's not about becoming a different person overnight. It's about starting to notice those small revelations that emerge when you allow yourself to question the obvious. Because, ultimately, the big turning point doesn't happen when you discover a miraculous method. It begins when you change the way you make decisions. when you stop acting automatically and start building something with intention. And perhaps that's what's most impactful, understanding that this journey isn't reserved for a select group. It's available to anyone who decides to look more closely, even without guarantees, even with doubts. Because everyone who generates income online today started at a point very similar to where you are now. And if this is affecting you in any way, comment below. I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because there's a hidden truth that almost no one tells you. Most people don't fail to make money online because of a lack of opportunity, but because they're stuck in beliefs they've never questioned. That idea that this isn't for me, or that it only works for those who already have an advantage, gradually takes hold and starts to influence every decision, even without you realizing it. And that's where everything gets stuck. Because while you believe you need to be visible, have thousands of followers, or invest a lot of money to get started, you don't even take the first step. But behind the scenes, the reality is completely different. There are people building income every day without showing their faces, without fame, without a perfect structure, just using simple and consistent strategies. The big turning point begins when you understand that you don't need to wait until you feel ready. That's one of the biggest traps. Nobody feels 100% prepared at the beginning. What these people did was act even with doubt, even without certainty, even when making mistakes. And it is precisely this movement that generates transformation. Another dangerous myth is believing that there's a single path, a secret formula that will solve everything quickly. This creates an illusion that prevents you from seeing what really works. Simple processes, repeated with focus and intention. It's not about momentary intensity, it's about consistency, about small decisions that accumulated, create real impact over time. When you begin to dismantle these old ideas, something changes internally. Your mindset expands, your vision adjusts, and what once seemed distant begins to make sense. Not because it became easier, but because you started to see more clearly. And if that turning point has already started to happen within you, comment, "This makes sense to me." Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because when you start observing what these people really do differently, you realize there's no magic, just clarity. While most people get stuck looking for the big opportunity, they focus on something much more strategic. Building simple systems that work behind the scenes. They understand that making money online doesn't come from a single success, but from a series of small, well-directed actions. Instead of jumping from idea to idea, they choose a path, learn the basics, and persevere even when there are no immediate results. It seems simple, but that's precisely where the separation happens. There is a clear difference between those who only consume information and those who transform information into action. These people don't wait for perfect motivation or ideal conditions. They make imperfect decisions, adjust along the way, and move forward. And over time, this movement generates a cumulative effect that begins to appear. Another point that almost no one notices is the focus on the process. They aren't obsessed with quick results. They're committed to building. That changes everything. Because when you take the pressure off yourself, you start to see opportunities that previously went unnoticed. And it's in this space that true revelations emerge. Behind the scenes, what seems complex on the surface is, in practice, a sequence of steps repeated consistently. It's not about doing a lot at once, it's about doing enough every day. And that creates a silent, yet extremely powerful transformation. And if you stop to think about it, maybe what's missing isn't ability, but direction. Comment below, "I want clarity." Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because one of the most interesting and, at the same time, most ignored paths is precisely the ability to generate income with content without needing to appear on camera. It seems contradictory at first, but it makes perfect sense when you understand what happens behind the scenes. There's an entire structure operating behind the videos, texts, and pages you consume every day. Content that informs, entertains, or solves specific problems. And that, at the same time, generates money continuously. And the most curious thing is that, most of the time, you don't even know who's behind it. These people understood that the focus doesn't need to be on them, but on the value they deliver. They study what attracts attention, what generates curiosity, what solves real problems, and transform that into strategic content. It could be a channel, a blog, a simple page. The format changes, but the logic is the same. Attract attention and convert that into income. This is where an important mindset shift comes in. Instead of thinking I need to be in the spotlight to make money, they think, how can I create something that works even without me? And that's exactly what opens doors. Because when you remove the need for exposure, you gain the freedom to test, make mistakes, adjust, and evolve without pressure. At first, the results may seem small, almost invisible. But with consistency, this system begins to gain strength. One piece of content leads to another, which leads to another. And suddenly, there's a flow happening. Not by luck, but by construction. And perhaps that's one of the biggest revelations of this journey. You don't need to be the center of attention to make an impact. Comment below. It's possible to do things differently. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because there's another path that many people underestimate, but which is behind a huge number of people generating income online: simple affiliate marketing. And here, once again, the hidden truth shatters expectations. You don't need to create a product, you don't need to deal with inventory, and you don't need a complex structure. What these people do is understand the power of the connection between someone who has a problem and someone who has already created a solution. They position themselves in the middle of this process, recommending products or services that truly make sense, and they get paid for it. It seems basic, but the impact of this, when well applied, is enormous. Behind the scenes, it all revolves around attention and trust. It's not about randomly sending out links. It's about understanding what people are looking for, what problems they want to solve, and how to present something that truly helps. And when you start to see that, you realize it's not about selling, but about guiding them. The big shift in mindset here is to stop thinking like someone who needs to convince and start acting like someone who facilitates decisions. This completely changes the game. Because when there is clarity and intention, actions cease to be forced and begin to flow more naturally. At first, it may seem confusing, even overwhelming. But over time, everything starts to make sense. Small results appear, confidence grows, and the process strengthens. And the most interesting thing is that this can be done simply, without exposure, just with strategy and consistency. And perhaps this is one of the biggest revelations so far. You don't need to create something from scratch to get started. Comment below, I can start like this. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a path that many people ignore, thinking it's too simple, but which holds enormous transformative potential: basic digital services, what some call invisible freelancing. And here, again, the hidden truth emerges: you don't need to be an expert or have years of experience to get started. Behind the scenes, what these people do is identify simple skills they already possess or can learn quickly, and transform that into a solution for others. It could be basic editing, writing, content organization, simple design. Things that seem common but are in constant demand in the online world. The key point isn't the complexity of the skill, but the decision to use what you already know strategically. While many people wait to get good enough, others are entering the game with what they have and evolving in the process. And this creates an interesting dynamic. The more you do, the better you get, and the better you get, the more opportunities arise. There's also an important mindset factor here. You stop seeing yourself only as someone who needs money and start seeing yourself as someone who solves problems. This change, however subtle it may seem, has a direct impact on how you act and the decisions you make throughout your journey. At first, it may seem small, perhaps even insignificant, but it is precisely this first movement that breaks the inertia. And when that happens, everything begins to take on a different dimension. And if you look more closely, you might realize that you already have something you can use today. Comment below, I can start now. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a point that almost no one highlights with the clarity it should. The real secret isn't in the method, but in the mindset that sustains the process. And that's one of the biggest revelations of this journey. Because you can have access to the best strategies, the simplest paths, but without consistency, everything gets lost along the way. Behind the scenes, what differentiates those who truly build something from those who get stuck at the beginning is how they handle time and their own results. Most give up when they don't see a quick return. They interpret the initial silence as failure, when in reality it's part of the process. But those who understand the game continue even without immediate validation. And that's where the transformation begins to happen. There's a hidden truth here. Consistency isn't about constant motivation, it's about repeated decisions. About doing what needs to be done, even when it doesn't seem exciting, even when nobody's watching. And that has a gigantic cumulative impact, because each small action reinforces a new identity. Another important thing is how you interpret mistakes. Those who don't evolve see mistakes as a sign to stop. Those who grow see them as a course correction. This difference in perception completely changes the outcome over time, because the journey isn't linear. It's built with tests, learning, and small adjustments. And when you start to internalize that, everything changes. The focus shifts from immediate results to building something. Decisions become more conscious, more strategic. And what once seemed distant begins to take shape, even if slowly. And if this perspective is already changing something within you, comment below. Consistency is the way. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because understanding what works is important, but recognizing what makes most people give up can be even more crucial on your journey. And here we come into play with some silent patterns that sabotage results before they even have a chance to appear. One of the most common mistakes is the constant search for novelty. A person starts something, doesn't see immediate results, and quickly changes direction. This creates an illusion of movement, but in practice prevents any real transformation, because nothing is developed long enough to generate impact. Behind the scenes, those who grow do the opposite. They choose a path and stay on it long enough to understand the game. Another thing that holds many people back is the need for immediate results. There's an expectation of quick returns that doesn't correspond to reality. And when that return doesn't come, frustration arises. But this frustration doesn't come from a lack of results. It comes from misaligned expectations. The hidden truth is that almost every beginning is slow, and that doesn't mean it's not working. There's also the mistake of ignoring the basics. Many people want to move forward without building foundations, without understanding the process, without developing consistency. And this creates a fragile base that cannot support growth. It's like trying to accelerate without direction. And perhaps the most dangerous of all is doubting yourself too early, interpreting initial difficulties as inability, when in fact, they are part of the process. This directly affects decisions, weakens mindset, and interrupts the journey before the turning point happens. When you start to see these patterns, you gain a new perspective, because you avoid falling into the same traps and begin to act more consciously. And if you've identified with any of these points, comment below. I'm not going to give up. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because after all this, the big question stops being is it possible? It becomes how to start practically, today, without getting stuck. And this is where many people complicate what, in essence, can be simple. Not easy, but simple. The first move isn't perfect, it's intentional. It's about choosing a single path, not 3, not 5, on giving it real attention. It could be content without showing your face, affiliates, or digital services. The mistake isn't in the choice, it's in the constant indecision. Because every time you change, you restart your own journey. After that comes a stage that almost no one values as they should, learning the basics and applying them immediately. It's not about consuming hours of content. It's about taking an idea and testing it, creating something simple, adjusting, improving. This cycle of action and correction is what builds results behind the scenes. There is also a silent decision that makes all the difference, defining a minimum period of consistency. 30 days, for example, a commitment to yourself to act, even without external validation. Because it is in this space that transformation begins to take shape, albeit discreetly. And throughout this process, observe what happens not just in the numbers, but within yourself. Your mindset changes, your clarity increases, your decisions become firmer. And what seemed distant begins to become possible, not by chance, but through conscious construction. Ultimately, starting doesn't require everything to be ready, it requires movement. And perhaps that's the missing piece until now. And if you feel it's time to take that first step, comment below. I'll start today. And if you've made it this far, you may have already realized that it wasn't just about making money online. It was about seeing possibilities that previously seemed invisible, about understanding that there is a more strategic, more conscious path, and that it begins much more with how you think than with the tool you choose. If this type of content resonates with you, it's worth subscribing to the channel, because the idea here is precisely to continue exploring these paths in a practical way, without illusions, bringing clarity to those who truly want to build something over time. And if at any point during this video you felt something clicked inside you, leave a simple comment, just so I know you were here until the end. You can write, "This message was for me." This creates a real connection, not only between you and the content, but with other people who are on the same journey. Oh, and if this video gave you any kind of insight, that kind of thought that stays in your head afterward, a like is a way to show that. It's a simple gesture, but it helps this kind of message continue to reach more people who are also seeking change. And before you leave, there's a video here that perfectly complements everything you've just seen. It delves even deeper into this perspective and can give you more clarity on the next step. So click and continue reading there.